welcome to Catch Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. This podcast is about living and playing in the Florida Keys. I cover my favorite sport, fishing, but also all the many things to see and do down here in the islands. Thank you so much for tuning in, and now it's time to kick back and relax with me in the Keys. This week's episode of Catch Outdoors is number 181. Catch Outdoors brought to you by Spotify and lots of other streaming podcast sites. This week's title, Feeling Lucky. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into my podcast. I'll explain the feeling lucky probably at the very, very end of this. First, a weather report. Sunny, warm, breezy. Pretty much sums it up. I was going to try to go fishing this morning, Wednesday. But conditions haven't improved enough, so not to mention water quality due to heavy winds a couple of days ago. Man, it blew here like crazy. So I'm going to try to go on Friday. I'll explain more about that in a little bit, but it looks good on paper. We are now in the spring flip-flops is what I call it. Whether it can be warm to hot and then all of a sudden very cool. And we had that within a 24-hour period. We had 88 degrees, a record high, and then we woke up to 59. I'm like, well, okay. And that's how it goes in March, to be honest with you. And it'll be that way all the way until the very first week of April, where it'll just sort of settle into a more 80-degree pattern. Not 88, but you know what I'm saying. Hopefully the cold fronts will stop coming. They'll come down midway into Florida, maybe not even that far, and they'll just quit. But that's where we are right now. I'd hate to be a weather folk right now. I mean, good Lord, those poor people. I don't know how they do it. They just kind of stare at the map and go, "Oh, I don't know what's going to happen today." And then on top of that, we had a time change. Lordy. I really, I'm one of those people, I've said it before, I wish it would just go to standard time and leave it alone. I have selected standard time. Before I said I don't care, just pick one. I do care. I don't like it dark at 7:30 in the morning. That's crazy. Let's go with standard and stick with it. That's where it started. Let's just put it back. Please, somebody. Real quick, my books are on sale. Yes, the new one. What I Know About Fishing the Florida Keys is on sale at Amazon Books, and I've noticed the sales picked up pretty good. Thank you all very much. I don't make hardly any money because when Amazon puts it on sale, it doesn't bode well for me, but I don't care. As long as the book gets out there and people get to reading it and talk about it, that's what I like. I also have the book myself on sale through my website at catchoutdoors.com. I've got it discounted, and those are signed. So if you order one there, I think the prices are similar, to be honest with you. I might be a little less. I have to check that. Well, fishing wasn't in the cards this week. We still did some stuff. Janelle's schedule got pretty crazy this week, so I just participated, basically, extracurricular activities, as I like to call it. On this past Thursday, Janelle and I went to a huge redfish restock release sponsored by the CCA, Coastal Conservation Association, and Duke Energy. That was CCA Florida, by the way, and Duke Energy. Over 50,000 redfish, about the size of a decent-sized pinfish, were released into Biscayne Bay. There were a few bigger ones that popped out of that thing, but 50,000. Key Biscayne, we were at Matheson Hammock Park, which is in Cutler Bay. Beautiful park. I had never been there before. Never been to that park. We put our boat down further south at Black Point. But it was really nice to go there. Man, you get a chance, you're in the Miami area or you live in that area or you are in South Miami or Cutler Bay, or go to the park. It's a really pretty park, really nice. Many familiar faces were there, including Captain Rick Murphy. Rick, it was great seeing you again. Rick and I did we did quite a few talks together at boat shows on the west coast of Florida, mostly in Naples, mostly at the Naples boat show, but it was good to see him. Excitement was had by all. There was a huge crowd. What was really, really cool was when the procession of trucks arrived at the park, this roar went up and applause from the crowd. It took 3 enormous trucks to bring all of those fish in, escorted by the police. It was really something to see. I have never been to a big release like that before, so it was heartening. It was great. I mean, it was really, really, really neat to think that they're going to put that many fish into Biscayne Bay. It's the first time it had been done in 30 years, and certainly nowhere near that number of fish. Lots of kids and adults were participating. Basically, what they did, they would back a truck into the ramp area, and then put a pump pipe out, and also open the top. And they would start dishing out redfish into those release bags like they used during bass tournaments, and then hand them to a child so he could go down or she could go down and dump the fish into the water. It was really cool. Photographs for everybody. The news was there. Very impressive. I don't know, just something about that really. I love that. Redfish is a central fish for a lot of areas of South Florida, all the way up into the Carolinas and into Louisiana. And I mean, that's a major fish that people like to go after that are anglers, whether it's fly or spin, whatever. And it was really great to see that happening. And then they have this giant pipe they hook up. I think there were 3 tanks on each of 2 of the trucks, and then the last truck had 4 tanks, I think it was. But they hooked the pipes up, turned the drain on, and the pipes are somewhat transparent, so you can watch these fish pour through this thing into the bay. Now, something I noticed, out of 50,000, I never saw fish float up dead, which I thought was pretty cool considering the amount of fish that were transported. And I believe they came all the way down from North Carolina. I think that's where Duke Energy's hatchery is. If I'm not, I could be wrong about that. I didn't check myself before I said that, but I think that's right. But it was amazing. And what was really cool, if you were standing at the bottom of the ramp, there was like a rocky area off to the right, and there was a great big mangrove bank there. And you could watch those little dudes heading right for the mangrove like they're supposed to do. It was, streams of them. Like one little guy would head off to the mangrove, and all the rest of them were following. I just thought they know exactly what to do. They know exactly where to hide. So it's just like all of us talk about, man, you fish mangroves for redfish, and that was the reason why. So, but anyway, very cool. They had a couple special things I noticed set up. They had used a bay boat alongside a dock and had tilted the engine slightly to starboard, which was basically pushing the little guys in the direction of the mangrove. They didn't want all these little fish to be. You can imagine what would happen if a bunch of these little fish, these size of pinfish, are underneath the dock. You're going to get attacked by jacks and everything else at a marina. So they were purposely steering these little guys away. I didn't see any blowups in the water during all this process because they had to dump a truck, bring in a truck, dump it, bring another truck and dump it. It took about an hour for this whole process to happen. And pretty impressive that the overall survival rate, from what I could see, was really, really good. Positive, very positive. So thank you, CCA, and thank you, Duke Energy, for what you do for reestablishing redfish in the state of Florida. Really appreciate it. Let's see. What was now? Oh, Janelle and I ventured down to Islamorada on Saturday for the grand reopening of the Pines and Palms Resort. This place is located all the way down at the end of Islamorada, just before you get down to Bud and Mary's on the ocean side. Been there for a long time. It's a beautiful resort, and apparently it was in need of renovation, from what I understand, and they got it done. This was an interesting. I don't normally go to these, but Janelle says, this sounds pretty cool. You might want to go. And she knew that I was a big fan of a show that used to be on HGTV. Called Renovation Island. I don't know how many of you all remember this. It wasn't that long ago. A couple, let's see, Brian and Sarah. I cannot pronounce the last name. I think it's Baumeier. It's Beaumeier. There you go. You make of it what you will. But the show was called Renovation Island. And this couple, they're from Canada. They have 4 children. And he is a construction engineer and contractor. And I have no idea how, it was never explained to me how this happened, but they bought a rundown resort on Andros Island in the Bahamas and decided they were going to restore it and open it and operate it. Yeah. Neither one of them had any kind of hotellery, no, the hotelier. They had no idea what they were doing on the resort side, but they knew a lot about what the rebuilding would take. I mean, that was what Brian did. And I enjoyed the show. There were 4 seasons of it. It was wild. I mean, just imagine you're on an island. You have a resort that's run down, has not been, rust and busted air conditioners, and the kitchen was a mess. The pool everything was a mess. And they decided, well, we'll buy it and we'll fix it. And so begins this TV show. And you go back and watch it. It's still available, again, called Renovation Island. And so anyway, with them, how to get stuff imported into the island, how to get things done, how to get things built, waiting for shipments, because it comes by ship, obviously. It comes into Andros, and then it has to be trucked to them, and the nightmares that ensue. and they're still married years later. So those folks were responsible for this renovation at Pines and Palms. And I found that really fascinating. It's a show. It's coming up on HGTV. They call it Renovation Inc. now, I think is the show's name. So this fall you will see the renovation process that they did at this resort. And let me tell you what, it is beautiful. To set the scene here, Brian is the construction engineer and all about, doing that stuff. And Sarah is the decorator. There's no other way to put it. She has an eye for decoration. And you could see that in Pines and Palms. Lots of light white colors, off-white colors, sea greens, sea blues, just really pretty, extremely well done. The rooms are great. Even the office, when you walk in the office, like, wow, this is really something. Beautiful pool area, pool bar. Lots to do, big couple docks, long docks where a boat could be kept. About the only thing they did that I wasn't real happy about is they closed the ramp. There used to be a ramp there at that resort, a small ramp for small boats, for like flat skiffs. And I don't know whether liability or what happened with that, or just simply parking trailers becomes a problem down in Alamorada space. That may have had something to do with it. But anyway, that was kind of disappointing. And there was one guy standing next to me. He grumbled. He said, there goes another ramp. And that's happening everywhere, by the way. When I was working as a guide in Lee County, Florida, over in the Fort Myers, Sanibel area, the same thing. Every time you turn around, you'd lose a ramp, and it's bad. I mean, that's bad. You need the boat recreation for people, and I think that needs to be considered in all places that are on water, especially in Florida, because the construction seems to take over, and the one thing that gets ignored is boaters' access to the water. So anyway, check it out when you get a chance. Both Renovation Island and Renovation Inc. On HGTV. So there you go. Fishing. I'm gonna get back to boating and fishing. I'm going to talk about it because I didn't do it. Like I said, I'm going to back up here and tell you what's going on. Jonelle had to go to Tallahassee. It's time for governmental stuff to happen in Florida. 'Tis the season, as my brother said on the phone yesterday. As a matter of fact, I noticed that the Captains for Clean Water were up there for legislation to get in front of those people and talk about the needs of the people on the west coast and east coast of Florida and stop dumping water out of Okeechobee. The same old every year, and trying to protect the boaters and fishing folks and the wildlife. So Janelle's up there for that on the tourism side. That's about all I know about it, to be honest with you. She's going to be up there this week and next week, as a matter of fact, at Tallahassee. So I walked her out to the car this morning before the crack of dawn, I guess it was about 4:30 or so this morning. She had to catch a flight out of Miami, so she had to leave early. And I was going to go boating this morning. And based on weather reports and all this stuff, I thought, oh, this will be great. I'm going out. I'll go this morning. She's gone. I'll have a quick breakfast and I'll go fishing. No and no. It was still breezy this morning. It had not let up, and I thought, daggone it. So I went inside, I pulled up the weather, and noticed that Friday looks like a vast improvement. So I'm going to plan on Friday morning for now. I don't do a whole lot of planning. I'll get to that in a minute. I went up to Homestead yesterday to deliver another batch of stuff to the storage room in preparation for our move that's coming up. And on the way back, I had a pretty good view of Blackwater Sound from a couple of bridges and also along the waterway. It is full of mud. We had a windstorm a couple of days ago. You had to have been around to believe. I'm sure we had gusts at 45 to 50 because I had plants in the backyard blown over. And then by the looks of Blackwater Sound, you don't often see mud trails in that sound because it's got a fairly hard bottom in it. It's not like the sandy, muddy bottom that you get over in Florida Bay. So I know it's going to be a mess. So that was my second reason. The back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know. I guess I can go out front. Well, of course, if the breeze is blowing, I ain't going out front. So anyway, we'll hope for a better day. I got asked, back on the fishing trip thing, I got asked where was I? I can't remember where I was. Well, that happens with old age. But anyway, there was a guy, he asked me about, how do you plan your fishing trips in the Keys? And I said, I don't. And he looked at me like I was crazy. I stopped planning fishing trips years ago. I have written a couple articles about it. I've spoken out with people, friends that I know that I used to, when I became a fishing guide, that's a high stress job. I don't care what people say. Oh, you're a fishing guide. Oh, that's really cool. Well, it is, but it's a high stress job. You got to perform. You got to get people on fish. So when I first started, I'd lie in bed, stare at the ceiling fan at 3 o'clock in the morning, knowing I had to leave the house at around 4:30 to go get bait. And I'd start plotting and planning and figuring out what I was going to do and where I was going to go. And based on the weather report and what had been told to me the night before by the weather and by, NOAA and all that fun stuff, tides. And then get out on the water to get bait and look around and suddenly realize all of it's wrong. Wind direction's different, might be more, might be less, could be variable. Tides are not what they said it was going to be, which didn't match the wind direction. I mean, I could go on and on the science side of it, but I knew right then I got to change everything I thought about. Go pick the people up, make changes, catch fish. I am proud to say that during my guiding career, I was never skunked. I had a rotten day one time. I remember it well. Fortunately, it was a friend, which I took him out on another trip. I told him, okay, guys, you ain't paying for this. This is embarrassing. I caught 3 trash fish. I will not mention what they were. They were so bad they wouldn't even make the trash can slam. It's funny. You remember the good ones too. Don't get me wrong, but you really do remember the bad ones. They stick with you. They make you work harder is what happened. So anyway, I quit planning fishing. I basically got in the boat, looked at what was going on around me, and then would go. Same thing true with the weather. I never ever called a trip from home. Unless it was a hurricane. But I mean, if it's rain coming or there's a front coming or whatever, I would go to the marina. Then I'd meet people at the marina and help me make a decision on what they want to do. I mean, you'd be surprised. You got a couple of guys from up Minnesota, Michigan way, and you think 50 degrees is cold. They think it's springtime. You think the wind at 20 is bad. They don't. And they've been planning this now for months. They've booked their room. They've booked their trip. They are ready to go. So you ask them, do you really want to do this? And they almost always say yes. And I would look up at the sky with my eyes going, oh, please, Lord. But we go out and catch fish. I'm not going to kid you. It'd be a rough ride. It's bouncy as hell. But I took them into protected waters and we got fish. That was an advantage, by the way, of fishing the upper West Coast or the lower West Coast, Southwest Florida, in that you had Pine Island Sound. You had a tremendous area of protected water that really did make a big difference when you were trying to find fish. So that's that. To the extent of what that guy asked, how do you plan? I don't. I know I need certain baits, and I know I need certain things on the boat that I like to fish with, and I need equipment. I need rods, reels, line. But that's the extent of my planning. I put some frozen shrimp as a backup in the cooler I like to artificial fish personally, so if that's not working out, I will definitely go to bait. But I try to avoid that. I grab a fly rod and take that with me as well. So, but planning, no. You're much better off going out and just reading what's going on and then adapt to what's happening. And that may cause you to change the way you fish completely. Here in the Keys, it's a huge part of it. If you go out front and it's too rough, you're fishing close. If it's real rough, you're going inside. So your whole day changes. You're going on the other side of the islands to try to get out of it. You may not be able to fish a single spot that you know produces fish here in the Keys if the weather doesn't cooperate or the wind direction doesn't cooperate. So there's a lot of adjustment. And I've learned a lot in the past 2.5 years, almost 3 years down here. It's sinking in pretty good. Up here in Key Largo, it's a whole new ball game. But I do like it. I enjoy the research and hunting. I'm getting anxious, as I mentioned last week, to get down to Alamrada. I know the water down there a whole lot better. So I'm looking forward to that. It should be a lot of fun. Now about boating. Boating in general now. This is part of fishing, of course, but a lot of people down here, they just plain boat. And I have seen some atrocious things. I've seen some scary things, to be perfectly honest. If you go online and you go to Facebook or YouTube, there are channels and pages that do nothing but show you boat mistakes. There is one, I think it's called Miami Ramp Wars. Don't hold me to that, but it's Miami Ramp something. And they pretty much post every other day something that happened at the boat ramp in Miami, at one of the boat ramps in Miami. And I can attest to that. I launched at a ramp for half of my career. I worked at public ramps for half of my career before I wound up in a marina, which was a nice change. And I still used a ramp occasionally right down the road from there, where I was at the marina. But I saw some wild things. People do stuff. I saw sunk trailers and trucks, boat and trailers. The guy actually managed to halfway sink a boat on a trailer behind the truck. Lord. But I've also seen a lot on these videos. People do some really crazy things. And I want to caution you, please, if you have never backed a trailer down before, if you've never backed a boat up on a trailer before, practice before you go to the ramp. I watched the guy do this a few years back. This is really cool. He had boxes. He had what looked like what I'm using now, like U-Haul moving boxes. They were the 1x1x1s, the little square boxes. He'd taken about 4 or 5 of them, and he had stacked them and taped them all together. And he was was it Target? No, it was Walmart. It was a Walmart lot. And he had set these boxes up to represent the target, basically, the spacing. And he was practicing backing the trailer and the boat in between the space with this truck. And I thought, no matter who looks at you and laughs right now and goes, look at this, you are the wisest person on the planet as far as I'm concerned. You are really taking the time to figure out what's going on. And he got it. I watched him several minutes, and he did it over and over again until he got it down. I'm going to give you a tip about backing a trailer. I am not a fan of mirrors. I'm not a fan of the fancy rear view cameras now. I mean, really, the rear view camera only shows you the bow of the boat, doesn't really show you too much about what's going on behind it. But the reality is I'm the old-fashioned guy in the truck who swings my right arm up on the top of the seats and looks over backwards while I back a truck up, okay? I don't use the mirrors. But the greatest trick I can tell you about, which was taught to me years ago, is putting your hands on the steering wheel. Most people back up by using the standard 10 and 2 o'clock on the steering wheel. You hold the steering wheel and you start backing, you twist and turn, and you soon discover that the opposite happens of what happens with the steering wheel if you hold it that way. If you steer right, the trailer goes left, and vice versa. Here's the trick. Put one hand at the very bottom of the steering wheel at 6 o'clock. All the way down at the bottom. Whichever way you push the hand, left or right, the trailer will go. Ta-ta-ta. That's probably people now are looking at. I know what you're doing. You're using your hand right now, going, "Are you serious?" Yes, I'm serious. A trucker taught me that. And truckers ought to know because they back monster trailers constantly. So you put the hand down at 6 o'clock and you go left, the trailer goes left. You go right, the trailer goes right. There you go. I mean, if you do that one thing, you'll get so much better at backing trailers up. And that is the biggest ramp war thing I've ever seen. People that get themselves jackknife and run into the dock. I saw one the other day where a guy backs the boat down. The boat doesn't come off all the way. He realizes that he's still got straps on the stern of the boat. So instead of pulling the boat out and taking the straps off, he leans over the back of the boat and tries to take the straps off underwater. Well, the trailer comes loose and floats underneath. Basically, it drifts is what it does underneath the dock. And now he's got a boat sitting on it. The trailer's under the dock, and he can't get either one of them out. I didn't even watch the end of the video. I didn't want to know. But that's the kind of thing that happens. If you make the mistake and you leave the tie downs on your boat that are to the trailer, be embarrassed if you want, but pull the daggone thing out of the water, go around back, undo them, smile at everybody, and try again. Also, get into a routine. If you're going to put boats in at ramps, have a certain routine that you do. Do not block the ramp to put equipment from the truck on the boat. When you get there, what you want to do is equip the boat away from the ramp. Get everything ready. Get your tie downs off. Double check everything you get. Make sure you're ready to go. Something I do is disconnect lights. I don't like submerging lights while they're connected to electricity on the boat, to the 12 volt on the boat. That's where your shorts will happen and blow a fuse. It's a real good idea when you get ready to back the trailer down, disconnect the electric, disconnect the lights, and then back on in and get out of the way. As soon as you get that boat off, tie it to the dock, or if you got a buddy that can boat away from the dock, that's even better, and then go park and get the hell out of the way so the next person can get in there. So hope that helps. Something else that came to mind, I was watching all the run out of gas nonsense. We have Towboat US and Sea-Tow here, and we have a little channel that does stories from Sea-Tow about what they've done, and the out of gas thing seems to be the biggest one. That would be embarrassing. I never want that to happen. But let me tell you, gas gauges on small boats almost never work, even if they have one or not. I had a 65 Volkswagen? Yeah, had no gas gauge. Yeah, so you had to keep mileage on a little pad, and you had to know what the gas mileage was. Same thing in boats. My brand new Mako, the gas gauge never worked. And I was not surprised, and I didn't take it back and say fix it. I thought, okay, this is just normal. Every small boat I've had, the gas gauge is either doesn't work or is way off. So here's the solution. You got to log your mileage, and you got to know the gas mileage. 2 steps here, 3 steps really. It's very easy. Fill the boat up the first time you use it and go boating. Turn the GPS on or a GPS tracker on your phone on and track the mileage so you know how far you've gone when the trip is over. So let's say you do 32, 35 miles. You'll know that on a full tank. Immediately take the boat back to the gas station and fill it up. Write down the amount of fuel it took to fill it up after you did 35 miles. Do the math, and you have miles per gallon. Ta-da! If in my case, I have a 28-gallon tank. Some boats have 40 and 30-something, and some of them have 60s. You have your total amount of gas now. You had 28 gallons in my case to start. I did 35 miles. I put blah blah gas in. I can do the math and figure out exactly what my miles per gallon are. On a boat, my little boat gets between 5 and 6.5 miles to the gallon, depending on RPM. So I leave it at 5. I keep mentally at 5. Take 5 times 28 gallons, and you get about 140 miles. Okay? So I always fill up once I have tracked 100 miles. That gives me tons of leeway. I won't do, and a lot of trips down here in the Keys. The other day I put 54 miles on. It's possible in 2 trips to put 100 miles on your boat down here. There's a lot of water, a lot of water. Up in Fort Myers and especially in Estero Bay, shoot, I couldn't put 100 miles on it in a whole week's worth of charters. It was little bitty short trips to go fishing. So do that. And then keep that logbook current and log your miles. And then you'll know exactly when you need to fill the boat up, and you will not suffer the embarrassment of running out of gas in sight of land. Really, really sucks. There is a trolling motor. You can get part way back on a trolling motor, but that's a long, slow trip. Okay, my notes tell me it's now time for useless information.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modies.
Well, he swears up and down he's useless, but
he might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
Okay, here we go. This is from Toying Around. Since the Lego Group began manufacturing blocks in 1949, more than 189 billion pieces in 2,000 different shapes have been produced. This is enough for about 30 Lego pieces for every living person on Earth. 5/1000ths of a millimeter is the tolerance of accuracy at the Lego mold factories. There are more Barbie dolls in Italy than there are Canadians in Canada. Wow. The Slinky was invented by an airplane mechanic. He was playing with engine parts and realized the possible secondary use of one of the springs. And last, the 100 billionth crayon made by Crayola was Periwinkle Blue. That right there is definitely useless information. And until next week. And before I go, here's some final words. I recently celebrated my new birthday. Yes, those of us that have had a stem cell transplant are also given new birthdays. Mine happened to be on March 9th, and it also happened to be my 9th birthday. Let me explain. When you go through stem cell replacement, you are as close to death as you're ever going to be, I guess. They give you a chemo cocktail that'll completely erase your basic cells, and if they aren't replaced, you're done for. Fun, huh? Yeah. There are two kinds of stem cell replacements, or transplants, if you will. Cells that they get from other folks that match you, or your own cells, which are removed during a crazy process, and that's how mine was done. This machine basically takes your blood, removes stem cells, and then returns the blood to you. The goal is 5 million stem cells. I will not get into what happened to me. It was tough. I'll just say it was tough. I'm still here, but it was tough. But getting those cells can be an issue. But lo and behold, I was scheduled and underwent the transplant. When the cells are returned to your body, that begins your new birth date. The recovery is slow. You're a baby with almost no immune system. Over time, you have to be re-inoculated with all your basic vaccinations. That's right, you simply start over. It's remarkable. I had to go in for it's 6 months chickenpox and measles and mumps and all the things that we got as kids, smallpox, all that stuff has to be done because basically they have completely wiped that out of your system. And in my case, it's worked extremely well. 9 years later, I am doing really, really good. So happy 9th birthday to me. This past March the 9th. Kind of cool how that worked. Working on 10 years coming up. Take care. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening, please subscribe to the podcast channel and tell a friend. The Facebook page is Catch You Outdoors. Website's catchyoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and news about my books and my music. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.